you can't hide. Talking all that trash, it's got your tongue tied. We king in the window, we'll start till we're finished. You better be ready to throw down. Calling us nameless, I'm missing the papers, and we find our way cause we know how. You get it twisted, we doing our business, they're chanting our names and it's so loud. Better believe it, we can't be defeated, no way. We are the heroes, we're talking legend. Won't back down until our hands are to the heavens. Heroes, we're talking legends. Won't back down until our hands are to the heavens. Can't stop us when we go in. Kings and queens are folding. There's something in our touch, feel the rush. Yeah, we're golden, sending out a message. Leave them in the wreckage. Unbreakable, powerful forces not to mess with. We keep it a win, we'll fight till we're finished. You better be ready to throw down. Calling us famous, I'm losing the papers, and we find our way cause we know how. You get it twisted, we doing our business, they're chanting our names and it's so loud. Better believe it, we can't be defeated, no way. We are the heroes, we're talking legend. Won't back down until our hands are to the heavens. Heroes, we're talking legends. Won't back down until our hands are to the heavens. We are the heroes, we're talking legend. Won't back down until our hands are to the heavens. Heroes, we're talking legends. Won't back down until our hands are to the heavens.
I'm feeling things I've never felt. At times it gets me overwhelmed, but you mistake me for somebody else. If you think I'm fine, you don't know me well. You've been trying to keep me down, but I hold my breath so I don't drown. Just watch your step, I'll tell you now that I don't do well when I'm pushed around. Don't come at me with blazing guns, cause I am not the one, not the one. I've got zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. I've been through hell and back again. So if you think I'm weak, you're mistaken. Look me in the eye, my friend, and you'll see I know how this will end. Don't come at me with blazing guns, cause I am not the one, I'm not the one. I've got zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. Zero. Never know what I'll do. You never know what I'll do. Though I never like to, I think I gotta hurt you. You never know what I'll do. You never know what I'll do. Though I never like to, now I've gotta hurt you. It's not my fault.
You are being presented with a choice: evolve or remain. If you choose to remain unchanged, you will be presented with the same challenges, the same routine, the same storms, the same situations until you learn from them, until you love yourself enough to say no more, until you choose change. If you choose to evolve, you will connect with the strength within you. You will explore what lies outside the comfort zone. You will awaken to love. You will become. You will be. You have everything you need. Choose to evolve. Choose love. Welcome. I'm Alisha Quinn, and today we are going to be talking about no tolerance, zero tolerance. That was truly where I was at this time last year on December 10th, where I truly came to this point to take a stand of zero tolerance. But truly, what I came to learn is that I need to deal with my own BS and let everyone else deal with their own BS and just put a stand of zero tolerance for BS, really. If you're gonna lie, coming at me with blazing guns, lying, BS in me, cut you off. And so, we have to learn to take those stands in life. And so I had been staying at the Lifehouse shelter, women's shelter there since August when I came to the state of North South Carolina area. Ended up at this Lifehouse home. It was a huge house. It had 3 bedrooms, had upstairs. So there was 3 bedrooms upstairs and 1 bedroom downstairs, plus another bedroom for what they said was a house mom that would stay there at night in case anything happened, kind of thing. So we ended up, so this shelter would allow children to be there. And so there was one woman who had a 1 year old when I went in there, about a year old there. She was pregnant. She ended up having her second baby there and ended up getting into a place like November 1st. So there was like this change happening around right around November. There was another woman who was in there when I came in there with a son who was about 7, his school age and stuff. So anyhow, and she got a place, they got a place, and they ended up moving on. And so there was this change kind of happening with the people right around October, November time. Now, the girl who had been sleeping next to me, that I was placed next to, she had this very intense energy. I will put it like that. It was really just, she even, admitted in a meeting because we had weekly house meetings on Wednesday nights that she wasn't the friendliest person. So she did know that about herself, and she wasn't. She was it was very challenging, really approaching her over things because of the energy that she really, put out. And it was kind of like walking on eggshells, really, with her. And so she her and there was a girl that came in downstairs around the probably Octoberish time. There was a girl that came downstairs, and um they kind of had a little bit of this anti-kid kind of thing, the girl next to me and the lady downstairs. And this woman ended up coming in with two kids. And this woman with the two kids had, quite a bit of, stuff going on, really. She had been in, she was trying to get away from a narcissistic abuse relationships. So I was trying to talk to her and encourage her, like, to work on herself and things. And so there were some incidents that started happening with this yelling and screaming, at which yelling and screaming was one of the rules that was not allowed in this house. And so there was an incident where, these two girls, the one sleeping next to me and the one downstairs, just they had an issue with her from the get-go. She didn't have a vehicle. She was running late. So the place offered, was trying to, go pick her up and stuff to help her get back to this house. So her and her kids had shelter. And, these two women just had an issue over this and stuff. And, so she was running late past the curfew time a few times. And so these girls just had this beef, this issue with this woman who was running late and stuff. And so then there was an incident where it was like a Saturday morning, and the woman had gone in to take a shower, and her baby, which he was a toddler age. He might have been like a year and a half or 2 years old. He was young, but he all of a sudden he was in there, screaming and crying. It would turn out that he was asleep when she went in to shower. And so I was in the shower. I was pretty much in the same situation as she was, which was undressed. And all of a sudden heard this yelling and screaming going on because her kid is, yelling, crying, quite loudly. He's just kind of in this situation himself, and his mama isn't there. There was really no compassion there for her. And so, the girl downstairs starts yelling and screaming at her. She's in the bathroom, undressed. Her kid's in the room, yelling and screaming. And then, so I ended up, getting dressed and coming out and stuff. I ended up downstairs where or I was actually outside on the porch, because I would go outside and sit on the porch for a little bit of time on Saturday and I think maybe Sunday mornings or something. But anyhow, I was sitting out there, and the security guard, because there was a security guard on the weekends there, she came in and kind of slammed the door and was yelling herself at these two women that were having this big issue and things. So there was this drama going on, especially towards, very highly directed towards this woman and her two children. She had a lot of stuff. I will, tell you that. But, she was, from where she was at, she was trying to do what she could. And I really seen this, directed energy, towards her for sure from these women. And there was another incident where, and so after that, first I'll tell you, after that one incident, after the security guard was yelling at them, it just emotionally, what I was truly learning last year was this yelling and screaming reactive abuse kind of thing that is a huge trauma trigger for me. So I left after that and took a drive and just kind of got out of there to get, away from this whole situation of what was going on. So then there was another situation where it was about 11 o'clock at night. I think it was on a Friday night, and I was even asleep. And all of a sudden, the girl next to me is in the hallway where the laundry room was and yelling and going off the hinges over whose laundry is in the washing machine or whatever. It was technically her night to wash the laundry, but there were rules in place that your laundry had to be done by like 10 o'clock as well. And it was like after 11 o'clock, I wake up to this yelling and screaming. And truly, it really made me come to discover that, again, that I had this trauma trigger with the yelling and screaming and reactive kind of abuse thing. So I grew up in a home with domestic violence the first 4 years of my life, and I don't recall it. But see, the thing that has been revealed to me is that, see, you're a little kid sleeping, and then all of a sudden, dad comes home drunk, and whatever happens, all of a sudden, you're a little kid waking up to this yelling and screaming and fighting going on. And so it was really something that I became aware of for me with this yelling and screaming trauma trigger, really, for me, that I just can't have those type of people in my life at all. I just can't have it. And so, putting up that zero tolerance for such a thing. And, so there was this continual issue with this woman and two kids. These two women, the one next to me and downstairs, they were acting like the curfew police. They're like keeping tabs, on this woman and her two kids if they're running late and things like that. They're like the curfew police. And this woman who slept next to me, she really had this like, oh, you should be, taking care of yourself and, doing things a certain way. She really acted like she had a, no tolerance for BS kind of thing, and this type of thing, right? And so I just kind of watching this thing, and it came down where this woman and her two kids didn't end up showing back up. The night before, she had ended up telling me, because I even did really see this target, towards her and her two kids for sure, that, it was kind of better to go back to the narcissist and deal with him than deal with what she was dealing with there. And that's kind of the road that she took. She was gone the next night and ended up, only returning to get her things, which there was a huge incident over her returning to get her things, and this fear-based mindset with especially the woman who was sleeping next to me, because it was a man who showed up, this woman's narcissist man who showed up with her to help her get her stuff. So it was like a huge, fear-based thing that, their safety was, compromised, with having this man, come up in there to help her get her stuff and things like that, which I do believe he ended up being told he had to stay outside. No men were allowed to go in there, even if, their girlfriend or whoever it was moving in there. They could not help to bring stuff in. They could only bring it to the door for them. So they weren't allowed to come in. Men weren't allowed to come in. So it was kind of this fear-based ordeal. So, yeah, so I was just kind of really watching things and observing. I had really started getting very quiet and keeping to myself kind of thing after everything that had happened and I'd gone through. And I know it was just part of my spiritual path that I needed to take was to, quiet myself down and things. And, so I'm just kind of observing things more than anything. And so then, and really every time there was like a woman who was going to come in there with a kid, it was just like this big ordeal with this woman who was sleeping next to me and the woman downstairs. I never had really seen or experienced women so anti-kid. Truly. And so I loved kids and babies. There was even a woman who went in there with a very newborn baby, and she was in our room. And she did a really good job trying to keep that baby quiet. She really did. Like it was very impressive. But again, the woman who was sleeping next to me, it was just like her energy was just like walking on eggshells. And so, anyhow, there ended up being a woman who moved in there with three kids. And she was just like a tad bit late, once or twice. So, it's like the same thing happening all over again. I really sat there one night while there had been, we were in the holiday season time, and I think it was like the first week of December there that there was like a parade. And so this woman and her three kids were standing outside talking to one of the women who volunteered as a house mom to stay there at night and also helped with, stuff of running this shelter in the background and stuff, really. And so they spent some time outside talking, and I watched this woman who slept next to me just sitting over there stressing out like she's the curfew police. This woman is and her three kids aren't in the house, and I just sat there and just thought this woman is just going to keep on experiencing the same stuff until she works on herself and looks inside of herself. It's just like this cycle that I had just watching her go through. And so it was very interesting. And so then there ended up right around that time as well, there ended up being um an incident where she was yelling and screaming about the cheese in the fridge being gone. So there was food that was shared food. We got 2 meals a week. So sometimes there would just be like that extra stuff left over, cheese, for tacos or whatever. And
And it was very interesting because like the night before, I think we had gotten baked potatoes and you could put like cheese and toppings on it. So I had gone in there, I was eating some of these leftover baked potatoes. And so I went in there to, get a baked potato with cheese on one night and the cheese was gone, and I'm just like, oh, okay, it's gone. I guess if I want to eat these, I'll buy some my own cheese. And it was like the next night that the woman sleeping next to me, I hear her all the way. My room was upstairs and towards the other side. And she was downstairs in the kitchen, which was downstairs on the other side of the house. And I could hear her all the way up there yelling and screaming, ranting over the cheese that was gone. And so, there's these incidents of the yelling and screaming. And so did end up reporting it to the caseworker working there because it was just such a trauma, reactive thing for me, a trauma trigger for me that it just did something to me internally, having this woman yell and scream and stuff over what? Over what? You know, over what? Someone having their laundry in the washing machine, you know, over a kid crying because his mama's not in there, over cheese that's gone. It's that serious. But anyhow, and so I reported that to this woman, and I had my meeting, and then this woman who slept next to me had her meeting after me. And so backing up just a tad bit, so the woman who had um was downstairs, she had gotten written up over the yelling incident when the kid was crying. She had been written up and she had expressed that. She was PO'd about it, being written up and stuff for it. And so after I had reported the girl next to me going off on some of her yelling and screaming incidents as well. I could hear, I could kind of hear them in that meeting a little bit. I could just hear the jabbering a little bit over it. And, I was sitting in the dining room and stuff, and I watched this woman come out from the meeting. The girl who was downstairs, who stayed downstairs, was in the kitchen cooking. She snapped her fingers at her, and they went outside. And so they started this jibber jabbering thing. Anyways, I did get the feeling that she had put two and two together and figured out that it was me who had, said something about her yelling and screaming. Was either that or they're ticked off at the woman who was the caseworker managing the house pretty much. She was definitely like more of like managing that shelter on that front level with us, the women who stayed there and things. So it was kind of like either or. And so they started this talk crapping, right? Talking crap, about whatever. They're having their talking fest. And there was a very young woman who was new and was staying in the room I was staying in as well. And so they started having these talking fests. They're out on the porch at night, giving me time alone up in the room. And so during the period from the woman who left with her two kids and the woman with the three kids who came in there, nobody was really upstairs except for the woman next to me and the other girl in our room. The other two rooms were vacant at the time. And so these girls are downstairs. I had some time alone up there, you know? It was kind of nice. It was kind of different. It was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of nice, and they're just having their little uh talking drama, fest going on, complaining, really, complaining about this and that and, whatever, the drama stuff. And so they ended up, in fact, up in the room one night after one young woman who was pregnant, she got a different housing little situation thing. And the woman from downstairs had come upstairs, and I'm sitting up in there and they're doing this gossip, complaining, drama, just chit-chatting, kind of a little ordeal, talking about this girl who was pregnant, and that, well, if you're the one who laid down and did what you did to get yourself pregnant, kind of thing. And she's like, "Oh, I wasn't laying down. I did it doggy style." So they're talking about this stuff, and I was like, just talking about other people and stuff, gossiping, really. I ended up being like, time for Alisha story, So I end up sharing the story of when I was 14 that I met this boy whose grandparents lived behind our place. And, I was talking to this young man, I was 14, he was 15, and he ended up he was at the high school, right? So I thought, I got someone to talk to over there, right? I go over there, he wouldn't talk to me at all, And it was a few years later, and I was 18 years old, and my stepdad said, "Oh, there's this kid, and da da da. He went to the high school, and you probably know him." And I thought, yeah, I probably don't know him, but he was on America's Most Wanted. It's like, and so he had taken a child that he had been charged with molestation the year before, and had gone into the school and kidnapped him and took him. And so he was on America's Most Wanted, and he had talked about, going to Australia or London. So there was this big manhunt for this young man. I knew him from, the fence behind the house and stuff. Anyhow, he ended up a few days later being found in New York with the young boy. He spent 15 years he spent 5 years, 5 years for that incident. But 15 years later, when he was around 35 years old, found him up in Hollywood casting children in movies like Super 8 and Cheaper by the Dozen too. Huh. Is it a conspiracy that pedophiles are in Hollywood? Anyhow, so I told this little story to these girls, and I also said, one day we're going to start executing pedophiles. All we got to do is take our stand, and we have the power to manifest such a thing. It will all play out. Guess what? Pedophiles, they're being executed already, and we have that power. And so anyhow, the woman, she agreed with me that, yeah, pedophiles are being executed. So anyhow, they kind of were done after that, after I told my little story. Always can get them to stop their little little stuff, tell my own little story. Because I really didn't want to hear all the gossiping and BS and stuff. So, anyways, it came down to this woman who had these three kids who was about 10 minutes late on a Sunday evening. These women were acting like the curfew police. I had one night that I had permission of having a 30-minute leeway because of the group that I was in Monday nights. I was kind of, once these girls started this curfew police thing, I was like, man, I hope they don't like start targeting me because I'm, yes, have this permission and running a few minutes late. And so, anyhow, this woman and her three kids showed up about 10 minutes after the curfew time, and they locked her out of the house, her and her three kids. I was upstairs, kind of keeping to myself, really, and staying out of it, just kind of watching this thing play out and see how it played out. So this woman and her three kids were locked out. One of them went outside and even had conversations with her. They were not letting her come back in there because she had been late. And so it was just kind of this ordeal, the young girl who was in there was like, oh, she's just out there, having, this, big thing. This woman who had three kids, she was much different than the woman with the two kids. She was truly, working on, managing things the best that she could with the situation she was in and things. She didn't seem to have a lot of chaos and drama and stuff. She was really trying to handle her business and truly even keep to herself, just taking care of her kids and stuff. But these other women were really, kind of having this targeting thing towards especially women with children. So anyhow, they locked her out of there. And the next evening, Monday evening, I came back slightly late, after I went to my meeting. So it was, after 7 o'clock. And I could see there was, something kind of going on. But I was just kind of keeping out of it. And I'm always kind of like, I'm kind of like, I've been really going through where it's like, let me see what I find out. Like, I don't need to go finding out what's going on because things have a way, if you need to know, things have a way of finding you and you'll know. So I went in there handling my stuff, in the kitchen and getting my lunch stuff ready for the next day and just kind of, I don't know what's going on. And one woman came and told me that the woman who had slept next to me had been taken out of there in an ambulance. She said she thought she had a heart attack or something, which this woman was about, 30s, I would say 30s, maybe early 40s. So she was very young for having a heart attack kind of thing. So I was like, huh, okay. And so I, handled my stuff. I went upstairs, I get up very early. So I, was really getting ready to go to bed, not too long after I got back around like 8 o'clock. So I ended up at one point hearing the woman who lived downstairs, who was a huge part of that instigation of keeping the woman and her three children out of there the night before. She was the one who really was, even talking to her because she went out to her car or something. And, the woman with the three kids was just, she was a little PO'd, as you could imagine. these women were locking her out and not letting her come in. So I hear the woman downstairs cussing the caseworker who managed this place. So I'm just like, and I ended up going to sleep and everything. And I woke up about 10:30-ish, I would say. And the woman who slept next to me was back there. She was sitting on her bed. And so I figured everything was okay with her. And in the morning, I noticed that the woman who stayed downstairs, her car wasn't there. She hadn't signed out that morning. So I was kind of wondering and assuming that she possibly had been kicked out of there. And so I went on my business, with my life, doing what I did during the day and stuff, which, was working, and returned there and didn't know what was going on exactly, figured let me see how what's playing out here, really. And the woman who slept next to me ended up returning and started packing up her stuff. And so I ended up talking to her a little bit, and she was just like, there's just a point where enough's enough. And, she definitely had this kind of energy that life was against her kind of thing. And so she felt things should be ran and done one way. And, so, but, I did talk to her and tell her that, I had learned a few things from her. She really did try to eat healthy, and that was an encouragement for me. And also told her about taking a stand of no tolerance, zero tolerance, truly. But, the thing that I really came to discover was that everything that's within us comes out, and all the BS, talking crap, drama, all that stuff plays a role in your life. Sometimes we are our own worst enemies. We got to deal with ourselves and let other people's business be. Because you just keep on repeating the stuff when you are looking outside of yourself. And that's what that whole situation truly taught me, was when you keep on yapping and complaining about things, you get your next show that comes up again and again. Woman with kids, whatever. And she really had this thing for no tolerance, zero tolerance kind of thing for BS, but her BS was her problem. Talking crap about the woman running the place, talking crap about the women who have their kids and complaining about the kids, acting like a curfew police up in other people's business. It wasn't her position to be concerned over people showing up on time. Everybody has to check in. It was like it was her place to do such a thing, and it wasn't. And it was her that had the BS going on. And so, we learn and grow from each other. And that was a learning and growing lesson for sure. And after she left, the whole energy of that house shifted. It truly did. It truly shifted. So, no tolerance, zero tolerance. And that was my day of taking my own stand of zero tolerance for BS. And I know that everything begins within me. And that was on December 10th of 2024, when I took that stance of zero tolerance for BS. My words, my thoughts, and my emotions run a huge, it is what shows up in my own reality. Stay out of other people's business and deal with my own. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a few videos and we'll talk about them and come back for some questions and answers and a conclusion.
Do you guys ever look back at your life and realize the amount of that you used to tolerate? Because I sure as hell do. And I am so grateful for growth because I'm no longer that version of me. If you cannot tell me the truth, if you cannot take accountability for your if you cannot apologize when you have done me dirty, if you cannot communicate like a whole adult, then I don't need you here, right? I'm not going to beg you to stay in my life. I damn sure am not going to make an effort to talk to you. I'm not going to beg you to be here. I'm not going to beg you to do right by me. And I will never again in my entire fucking life lower myself or my standards just to keep somebody around. You see, I am honest. I am just. I am fair. I always take accountability for my and I expect the exact same thing out of people that I keep in my life. And if they can't meet me there, if it cannot be an equal give and take, then I am better off without that in my life. I worked really hard on myself to get where I'm at. And I expect those people that are in my life to also be working really hard on themselves, all right, to grow in life. I don't settle for less. I expect a lot out of myself, and I also have the same expectations for the people that I keep company, and I'm not sorry about it.
Yeah, that was Tay Lynch. I had her on my podcast, and I showed that video before when she was on here, and that I am no longer that past version of myself and truly coming to taking accountability for my own BS, the things that I have done myself, especially, with my own children and things as well, having that accountability and taking that responsibility with it, and the people who are from my past, that they never took accountability, communicating things with me that they should have communicated with me on. And so, and that's the thing is that I work on myself. I take my own accountability and I am going to communicate anything that needs to be communicated. And if people aren't willing to do that, that they want to tell me something when everything's done and over with that they knew about, that's a bunch of BS. That for years you knew some information that I should have known, you're out. I don't care who you are. So grow up, take accountability, and communicate. Work on yourself. And people don't want to do that. Zero tolerance. You're out. Because I'm better off and much happier on my own and connecting with myself and spirit than to deal with someone who's not going to communicate something to me that I need to be communicated, or taking accountability and responsibility for their reactions, their yelling and screaming, their own BS. So, it is what it is, We can't do anything but work on our own selves. And as we work on ourselves, it changes the world around us. And that's what I've come to learn. So we can whine and complain about it, but you only get more to whine and complain about. It's your own BS. You can live in fear. Guess what? You get your next show of fear. You can be judgmental. You get your next show of being judgmental. In the drama, in the chaos, guilt, shame over, what you've done. So the only thing that I can do is deal with myself and deal with that stuff. Stop worrying and fretting over all the little things. And they're all little things. They all are. So anyhow, we're going to go ahead and ask some questions and have some answers. So, does talking crap about others play a role in your own life? And from what Spirit has shown me, it does. You can keep on talking crap about other people, and you just get something more to talk crap about. It's you like complaining, people are like that, but they teach us something. So that's what I learned. Are we creating our own drama and chaos in our life and the world? Well, from what I have learned and been shown, out here is just a reflection of what's inside of us. So yes, we create our own drama, our own chaos in our life and the world. The world is nothing more than a reflection of ourselves collectively. So it's called Babylon, really, the world, So dealing with my own life, my own reality, and get rid of the chaos and the drama. So how to teach a toxic person a lesson? How do we teach a toxic person a lesson? Teach them that you won't be a part of the pity party by being unemotionally inattentive and indifferent to the crisis. And that's what I truly did, was keep out of it. I worked on keeping my emotions in check. I did make a complaint to the right person at the right time. I didn't go around talking BS and crap about those two girls. I didn't do that. And so the only reason I do this here is for teaching and helping and the growth from it. So I learned and I grew from that whole situation. So why do I shut down when I get yelled at? Why would I shut down by getting yelled at? Because it is a natural response from your nervous system to an overwhelmed or threatening situation, often a learned survival mechanism. Yelling and screaming is low vibrational, flipping out, and so, but truly, I had to learn the lesson myself and stop doing it myself. So, learn and grow up. How to deal with a person who yells. Stay calm, don't yell back, and use soft, slow voice to de-escalate the situation. So really keeping yourself in check and not engaging, really. And that's what I've come to, like stop engaging. And I really had to go through that towards the end of my relationship with my former husband, of not engaging in his stuff, and that really made it where he was losing that control over me, with that reactive yelling and screaming kind of abuse thing, was just stop engaging with him with it. And so that's and If they continue, you might just have to get them out of your life. So my conclusion is that our own BS is what shows up in our life. And we got to look in to get out. Clear out our own energies of chaos. Whining and complaining gets you more whining and complaining. When you worry, you get more to worry about. When you live in fear, you get more to fear about. And that's how the game is played. The energy game is all our own energies. And so some people love it, they love the chaos. So embrace it. Embrace it. You want to be in the drama of the world, embrace it. Enjoy it, Enjoy your life. Say, yes, I like all this drama and chaos. Some people love it, And so you should enjoy your life and enjoy the show. It's your show. And so if you want a different show, you change yourself. You got to go in to get out. And so it's us. So, and that's, what I've truly come down to learning was my own energy. And I have to work on myself. And if I want no tolerance for BS, I got to deal with my own BS, including my thinking, when you're like, when you're thinking something negative about someone else, you got to change your thinking about it because we have that much power with the energy that shows up. So when we change our energy, it helps other people to really change themselves. So if we want no tolerance for BS, if we want the world to change, we're the ones who have to change. If you want peace in the world, make peace within yourself. Take the accountability, take the responsibility of yourself. And that is what I have truly come to learn. It's definitely learning and growing spiritual relationship with yourself to change those thoughts, change the things you're talking about, change your emotions. If you feel like something's always happening to you, why are you surprised when it happens to you? If you're lying and BSing, guess what? You're going to get people to teach you a lesson about your lying and your BS. Some people like to learn the lesson the hard way. Sometimes, it's like, okay, I learned my lesson, let's stop this because it continues on until we learn to deal with ourselves. What's in comes out. We only see the world as we think it is, as we are. And so if I choose to live my life happily and fulfilled and abundantly and with unconditional love and free will, everyone has a right to live the way that they want. And if I'm judgmental about how someone's living, guess what I get more of? Being judgmental about how someone else lives. And so I learned to deal with myself and just be like, I hope they're happy living that way. And maybe I can encourage them or help them or give them something to help them on their journey if I'm meant to. So it's all a show anyways, It's all scripted, orchestrated by the divine. And so, learning and growing from the people who are around me so that I can deal with myself. And that's my conclusion. So take what resonates. Remember, it's an energy game, and what you put out, you will get back in your life. So I choose to put out good things. Life is for me to learn and grow. We are all one. We are each other's teachers and helpers. Truly, truly. And that's what I've come to find. People are playing their own games of things. Some like the religious game, some like the political game, some like the conspiracy theory game, some like the sickness game, some like the complaining game. It's all up to us, individually. And when we make peace within ourselves, we'll make peace in the world. So our energy is powerful. It's our currency, really. So what you put your energy into is what you get. So I'm grateful for the learning lessons. I'm grateful for the growth and how far I truly have come on this spiritual journey in my life here on this earth. And I'm grateful for inner wisdom and knowledge, knowing that this is the last lifetime I have on this planet, and I'm going to make the best of it, And people who think they only live once can go ahead and think that, but they should make it the best that they can, really. So I'm grateful for the person truly that I have become, because she is beautiful. And so if you want any help with trauma healing or, taking your power back, I can help you with that. I have many tools, many resources that I have gained on this spiritual journey. And I would love to help you to, do that inner work, have that accountability, give you some wisdom and insight that I have gained. So you can reach out to me, like, share, subscribe, and my links and email are in the bio. Enjoy your day and your life. You have the power to become all that you want to become. Love you.
What is spiritual awakening? A spiritual awakening is when a person becomes aware of his real nature and own unique being. When this happens in your life, you will have a new sense of seeing things and the world around you. You will begin to trust life and use your inner voice when making decisions. You will be able to accept your emotions and really feel them, not repressing them through addictions and negative patterns. You will release the old pattern where you react in your life based on your traumas and old experiences. You will know that the same thing will not happen again because you attract what you want in life. You are able to release the old ways of thinking. When you experience a spiritual awakening, many questions will come into your mind and you will ask yourself a lot of questions because your ego will try to find all the excuses to keep you in fear and old patterns.
Isn't it strange how you'll never meet the version of you that lives in someone else's story? To some, you're heartless. To others, you're kindness itself. Some will remember your laughter. Others will never forget your mistakes. But none of them really know you. Not fully. They only know the version of you that crossed their path. You are not one person. You are 1,000 reflections in 1,000 different minds, shaped by moments you may not even remember. You can be a villain in a story you never read, and a hero in another, because we are all mosaics, broken and beautiful, shaped by the eyes that see us. And you don't get to choose which pieces they keep. But here's the truth. You do get to choose the version of yourself you wake up to every day. Because in the end, the only story that matters is the one you write for yourself.
No chains at our feet, like a fire we're burning free, blazing a trail, no roads. We're gonna follow that golden soul. Something is pulling us out to the to. Yeah, we do just what we want to.